did you think of the Time magazine piece on Javier?
Well, what it looks like is that they were mentioning they went to look for stuff that without context, they can make Milei look bad. It truly is a PR. But now this is the worst tricky part. I haven't read an article from people on the left that doesn't look like a hit piece because, and I learned this, if you guys know Michael Malice from long ago, he was mentioning in one show on a podcast saying, look at how usually the articles, usually from people from the left, always start with, let's say, Joe Rogan, who is usually known for being transphobic and whatever. And then they go on and then go on and tell you the story. But at the beginning, they always have to tell you something that can sound negative to set the tone. And then they go on and the rest. Why? Because if they tell you something positive later on, it's still in light of the negative or of the negative at the beginning. And that's what when I was reading, I was like, this is just, the typical PR piece. They're trying to show him as in a negative light. And I think I was discussing this already with your wife. The big picture is all the things, and I saw Argentines doing this on Twitter, which was fantastic. It was every single time someone would actually quote something from the article that it was supposed to be seen as negative. You get all the libertarians from Argentina saying that's what we voted him for. That's what we voted him for. That's what we voted him for.
Nothing wrong with these things in the article. They seem fine.
Exactly. Exactly. If you actually paint it in a correct light, that's what he was voted for.
Well, so let's go through some of these things. The thing that Steffi was really interested in was him apparently communicating with his dogs telepathically.
As far as I know, I think he did. I don't know. I don't want to lie to you.
Well, he didn't because telepathy doesn't exist, Aaron.
No, okay, he tried. As far as I know,
tarot cards. So I mean, they're kind of a spiritual family. Like
yes.
He's famous. Let me break it to everyone. He's famous because he has an absolutely weird background.
Yes.
That's just who he's not just an Austrian economist. He's a tantric sex teacher. Yes. Obviously, there was gonna be a bunch of weird things around. When I met, I was like, well, what else did you? I mean, with all the respect to everyone, some people know that my dad was kind of wild. He was a bullfighter and actually pretty famous in Mexico.
Your dad?
The wild stuff. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
And the wild stuff I know about my dad, that pretty much is like, that's those people, they're very charismatic in Latin America, are going to have this kind of weird background. That's just Latin America.
Aaron, we've got a little bit of breaking news this morning. It looks like this senator from Buenos Aires this morning is tuned in. Maria Florencia Arrieto just posted our stream over on X, and there are now 3,000 people watching us live this morning. Good morning, Argentina.
Oh, my goodness.
Muy buenos días a toda Argentina.
Aaron Sepulveda joining us live this morning. He's an economist going through the Time magazine piece on Javier Milei. We're going to break this down now. If you're joining us for the first time this morning, especially those down in Argentina, of the thousands tuning in, I'm Austin Petersen. You're watching the Wake Up America show, and we are big fans of Javier Milei here. So you're among friends. Welcome. We love the yerba mate. My smoking hot redheaded libertarian wife is joining us here. And don't worry, we don't touch the bombilla here over on the Wake Up American show. We hope that you'll become a regular guest on the Wake Up America show. We know that when people tune in to us over on Twitter or on X, that there isn't quite as robust a chat feature, which is why we do offer the Wake Up America show over at rumble.com/AP for Liberty. So if you'd like to join all of our friends from the United States, the Yankee Libertarians, join us over at rumble.com/AP for Liberty, and you can join us in the chat there, and we'd love to make your acquaintance over there. Let's continue, Aaron, going through some of the claims that are made in this Time magazine piece, because many of them didn't make sense to me when they were talking about the things that Javier Milei has done in his progress in terms of the poverty rate. So Milei's moves, cutting federal aid, transport and energy subsidies, and getting rid of price controls have caused living costs to spike. More than 55% of Argentines are mired in poverty, up from 45% in December. All right. So how do you respond?
I would say yes, that's exactly what he said he was going to do. He was going to get rid of subsidies. And therefore, and a lot of the prices, and this is where it gets real tricky. There were a lot of price controls, and therefore you couldn't see the inflation happening. What happens when you have price controls? Prices are not allowed to rise, or they have a right to rise with the market. You have lower production of goods and services. And if you look at the gross domestic product of Argentina, since they imposed price controls until Milei got rid of them, what happened to production of goods and services? It actually started to contract little by little, little by little. Why? Because every single business person in Argentina that they impose price controls on them, they know that no matter how much they produce, they cannot sell at a price that they think appropriate. Therefore, the production of goods and services was going to be stagnant since back in 2011. Nothing has changed productively in the Argentine economy since 2011. That's why people voted for Milei, because things have to change in Argentina. And he said, that means that at least for the first 2 years, there's going to be a deep recession. There's going to be a big contraction because we're going to switch the entire structure of production on the financial side and on the productive side. Everyone has to be ready for that. It's not strange. And that is precisely what Argentines, more than 50%, voted for him.
What does Milei mean when he refers to his enemies as the political caste, Aaron? Who are the caste? What is that?
Okay, there's a YouTuber, a great Argentine YouTuber, follower of Milei, Tipito Enojado. I highly recommend for you guys to follow him, although his content is in Spanish. He gave some of the best explanations. Is historically Argentina, at least from the 1950s, 1940s, they have implemented one way or another. I tend to call it the hyper Keynesianism or hyper modern monetary theory view of the world, which is straight out. Since the government can create money, as if we didn't know, it should subsidize what you like and it should tax what you don't like. Now, imagine having that philosophy in an entire society, an entire political system. Is going to create the terrible incentives to literally create a class, political class, that wants to have that control, to tax your enemies and to subsidize your friends. And this is what has been happening in Argentina since at least the 1950s. People that vote for you get subsidies. People that don't vote for you get taxed more or gets restriction. Within time, it was very noticeable that people involved in politics were getting ever more and more wealthy, while the private sector was getting poorer and poorer and poorer and poorer. So all Milei had to do was to point out to that fact that every Argentine was looking at, and says, you see, those political actors, they are the caste. They're the group that are above you, and they're imposing their ideology of taxing their enemies and subsidizing their friends, people that vote for them. And everyone understood that. It says, this is exactly what is happening. They're using government in order to tax their enemies and to subsidize their friends. This is going to go nowhere. We need to get them out. That's what the idea of the caste. It's all the political system that their purpose in life is to tax their enemies and to subsidize their friends. And what Milei did, and obviously was going to cause a huge macroeconomic shock, it was to get rid of all that ideology altogether from the ground, of getting rid of the idea that you should subsidize your friends and tax your enemies. And obviously it's going to take some time. He gave it 2 years. I give it 1 year, but I could be wrong. But everyone voted him. Everyone that voted for him, more than 50% of population, of voters, knew perfectly well for the first 2 years wasn't going to be easy.
Now, in his first 100 days, he does not have any major legislative accomplishments to speak of. This is what's written in the Time magazine piece. He did manage to close multiple government agencies. Many people don't understand the Argentine system. They compare it to the American system, which is a mistake, because the president of Argentina actually has more power than the American president does to make certain decisions in regards to which agencies can exist and get funding, etc. So talk to us a little bit about what he was able to do. What are the powers that Javier Milei, what can he actually do? And what does he need to accomplish in order to get his agenda across the finish line, noting that next year the elections are coming up. His political party, Libertad Avanza, will need to take seats in the parliament in order to move forward. Talk to us a little bit about what he's done, where he's going, and where he needs to be at, a year from now.
What he has done so far right now, it has been to deregulate large sides of the economy, usually macro views or macro areas such as mining, that they were not exploited at all. The typical proper complaint, it was that Argentina has pretty much the same natural resources in different areas. It's so big. Than Chile. Chile was properly taking advantage of their natural resources, and right in the border with Chile, on the Argentine side, which is exactly the same natural resources, they were not being taken advantage of. The same with Bolivia, the same with every single country that borders Argentina has certain natural resources that were properly taken care of by other countries, but not by Argentines, precisely because of all the regulation. In that, he has had a lot of strength on being able to just get rid of a lot of regulations. As you guys can imagine, a president, even more so in a presidential system, can get rid of regulations for the most part. But for example, things like lowering taxes, it does need the Congress to approve it. And that's usually going to be a big issue, because if you're going to invest in Argentina, you're going to produce in Argentina, you need to know where taxes are going to go. And for that, Argentines have to go out and vote, just like they did back last year for president. They have to vote for much better legislators. That's the trick. Why? Because there's no way they're going to Milei. That's why Milei had to focus on lowering spending instead of dropping taxes, because it was something that it was available to him as the head of the bureaucratic state. He can actually reduce the amount of people working at different rates. For example, there was a moment where he couldn't just get rid of all the bureaucracy at once. He had to wait for some contracts to finish, and all he did was to not renew them, because he doesn't have absolute power. He has to actually be careful on how, and also what we will call the soft power issues. For example, for one way or another, the states, which they're called the provinces, the governors of the provinces, do have a lot of political power. Not as much as the president, but they can put some pressure, and they did try, and they did try to put some pressure so that the federal government would continue to subsidize, the provinces, because the problem is not just at the federal level, which obviously is a problem, but the problem is also that the provinces, the governors, expect the federal government to subsidize absolutely everything. And so there is a clash. There are certain governors that are in his favor, and they can push forward, and other ones are against, so they are literally push backwards. So the big issue is, in order to lower taxes, it has to go through Congress. And in order for that to go through Congress, Argentines have to vote for much better legislators, and that's the goal, that they create a new political party. There's a good alliance with Macri and his people. People are not libertarians. Everyone has to understand this. They're doing alliances with people who are not libertarians, which means they're going to have to compromise on certain things. And now we have to choose priorities. And American libertarian priorities are not the same as Argentine priorities. We have to be careful with that.
Yeah, it's
and
true.
Be proper.
American libertarians, many of them are missing the boat here on what's happening down in Argentina. Yesterday, I posted that many of the American libertarians who hate Javier Milei are jealous of him. Javier Milei actually retweeted that when I posted it. Our mutual acquaintance, Antonella Marty, for example, wrote a large hit piece over in Reason.com. I used to work with her actually at Reason, and she has taken many of the leftist tacks in attacking Javier Milei, which has been fascinating. And then we've seen some of the more right libertarians here in the United States who are attacking him, hate him because of his stance when it comes to Israel versus Gaza. This has been sort of a fascinating case study to see many of those with it really reveals more about the prejudices of them than it does about Javier Milei. They really show themselves to be more the fools than what they are able to attack Javier Milei on in terms of policy, because quite frequently, I'm interviewing dozens of people, Aaron, not just yourself, many people, experts in Argentina and here in the United States, but of course, including yourself. And what I'm learning flies in the face of the attacks that are being made on him. So they'll say something like, well, there was a registry placed on Bitcoin terminals in Argentina, so Javier Milei is not a real libertarian. Okay, well, did he write that law? Was that something was that his idea? Did he advance that and push that? Or was this more of a legislative priority and it was stacked into an omnibus bill that was required for him to move his agenda? It's like they don't understand. The president doesn't write the laws down there either, do they?
No, it's not. And sometimes you just have to compromise or not notice, because you literally don't notice that let's say certain thing you're signing, you have to sign it just because the other side doesn't come. Or for example, the example about a crypto statute, pretty good. That was a legislation that came before, and then since it was finally applied, and that was a decision of the bureaucracy that could get away with it, by the way. It wasn't a decision from the new president. Well, sure, it comes out, okay, he has bunch of other stuff going on, and if he faces this problem, how top of a priority is that some very bad law about crypto came out, he's going to have to try to deal with that later, because right now he's trying to get investments into the mining sector. Just imagine what priority would a libertarian president in Argentina have? Should I make all the natural resources being fully used and try to incentivize people, or should I take my time and worry about these things?
We get it. No one gives a flying fart about Bitcoin terminals when you're talking about a massive industry like mining and lithium and other major improvements that need to be made to the Argentine economy. It's just not a top priority now. But there's something very selfish about American libertarians, that we think that what our agenda is and what our niche interests and special interests are should take precedence over that which is best for a country of billions of people, the 8th largest country in the world.
And Austin, this is really why I appreciate that you cover what is happening in Argentina, because it's been already about 2 years that I've been telling American libertarians and right-wingers in general, guys, pay attention to another country's politics so that you can have a point of comparison. So that you understand that when you actually read news internationally, the way you judge it, you cannot judge it with respect to what you experience. What happened with American libertarians, at least the ones that were criticizing Milei's foreign policy, is they were sold in the idea that libertarianism is defined by your foreign policy. And libertarianism is a lot more complex than your foreign policy. And one of the reasons why foreign policy is so important in the United States libertarians, which for me it is, I understand that, I'm not even disagreeing, it's because the context in which I live. Foreign policy is paid with my taxes. But for Argentine libertarians, they have so many other concerns that if like, yeah, sure. Actually, some of the critiques that we have done of the left in Latin America about them following the protest, pro-Palestine protest in the United States, and now some protests happening in the universities in Latin America, we were saying like, whatever your position is in that one, do you really think that that's a priority in Latin America? Whatever happens in Palestine and Israel, which is super important, do anyone seriously think that that's a priority given the situation in all throughout Latin America? They have different priorities. We cannot just expect them to literally be Americanized, ignore their context, and say, no, our priorities is whatever American libertarians say, is whatever American leftists say, is whatever. No, they're not Americanized. One of the cool things about Argentine libertarians is that they're not Americanized. They adopt their ideas and they wanna absorb them into their culture, which is exactly what we want. We want libertarianism to be part of the culture, in part of the context, not our concerns, but their concerns. The way I call it is, Argentina right now is moving to libertarian institutions so that the Argentine culture can flourish.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Petersen. Good morning. Thank you for joining us. 3,200 people joining us live. This is the biggest show we've ever had. Welcome. We're glad.
Muchas gracias por estar aquí.
Yeah, Aaron, they're probably all Argentines this morning, sending us text this morning. My dad is sending me, I'm getting a billion texts now because everybody is messaging us. I want you to ask your question, but very briefly before we do, because we got to go to Justin here about 10 minutes. I told him we're going to be a little bit late. I just want to remind those who are tuning into the show now, if you're a fan of Javier Milei, there is no better merchandise shop for Javier Milei products than apforlibertyshop.com. Pulled up on the screen right now, you can see this is a shirt that we actually have sold in Japan that I made. It's the Milei-san Samurai of Liberty shirt, where it shows Javier Milei as a ninja in front of a pagoda. And the Milei-san there shows Samurai of Liberty. It's actually a fuera. You can see on the side there in Japanese. So we actually sold a couple of these to Japan.
He's an international sensation.
He's an international sensation.
Yes.
We sold the Javier Milei shoes in Japan as well.
Yes.
The products that we make, we designed, Stephanie and I, we both designed together. And they can ship, most of these can ship anywhere in the world. Some of them cannot. Unfortunately, the original Afuera shoes cannot, but I made a version that does ship to Argentina.
That's right.
So if you're interested, we also have baby products like the Viva la Libertad Carajo bibs,
The lion.
onesies that Stephanie made. We've got a sexy strappy back bikini with Javier Milei's face on the butt, which is
Austin,
hilarious. Yes.
Austin, I guess the next one you guys want to do is yerba mate cups with afuera.
I would
Javier
love
Milei.
that. I would
If
love
we could
that.
find them, if we could find them, we would. But
Get a supplier.
right now, we're talking to Argentine winemakers. We're trying to find some yerba mate to bring up here to the United States. But the best we can do right now is to make like T-shirts and bikinis and hats and magnets and bomber jackets. So make sure if you're tuning into the Wake Up America show this morning live, join us. Check out apforlibertyshop.com. That's AP, the number 4, apforlibertyshop.com. It's the only place in the world that you can get many of these incredible products that my wife and I sell. And of course, we use the money to support our family and to support the cause of liberty. So,
That's right.
okay, Stephanie, you had a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, so it's a question and a concern. Do you really think that a year is enough time for Javier Milei to prove himself to the Argentine people and to get reelected? I worry that it's not enough time because the people might not be patient enough with these changes.
Great question.
In my view, it's 1 year for the contraction, and then let's say January 2025, the recovery, and then that recovery, I think that's where he's gonna start looking pretty good, and he can get reelected. I think it takes about 4 years.
Right in time.
I think so, but it gets a little bit mixture because one thing is him getting reelected as a president, and another one is the legislative elections that are usually not at the same time. That's where the big trick is, that maybe he can get reelected later on, but what if he doesn't have enough force? Well, his party doesn't have enough force in the legislative elections, and he doesn't get, maybe he gets reelected, but he doesn't get the Congress that he needs. That's what we need to keep an eye on because they're not at the same time. As far as I understand, they're split in time. But yes, the timing is super important because right now his approval rating is well above 50%. He's doing great in that. But it's the beginning of the phase. Is usually, I think they call it the honeymoon phase. You can understand why it's gonna be hot. The whole point is, and I think what has kept his popularity with a large part of the population is because he was very straightforward. And as I've been telling you guys, pretty much everything he's doing is exactly what he promised and why he was voted in, because there's a large part of the population that are not statists. And this story, I think it's very important to tell because I learned it, which was fantastic. There's a division inside of Argentine culture that I didn't know about until I learned. Long story short, since there's so many subsidies for pretty much anything you like, there is a large population that hates the idea of subsidies because they notice that subsidies do affect people's behavior. And so even playing around with the word like, oh, let me give you some money, is just a subsidy, don't worry about it, kind of playfully, they don't appreciate it because the word subsidy in certain sector of the Argentine population, it's a negative word because they can see how people behave very differently and how it affects people's incentives. So yes, there's a large portion of the population that wants this to happen. They don't mind going through the pain because they understand that things have to change. Things haven't been great since 2011. Nothing has changed. Literally, like it's, if we have the time, I can show you some of the data, but literally the economy is exactly in the same place back in 2011. Something went wrong and people want the change to happen.
Right. Aaron Sepulveda, an economist from Texas, keeping an eye on Javier Milei of Argentina for us. Aaron, is there anything else that you think is important for us to know or anything you'd like to plug before you go today?
I can't remember anything else because I have so many things going on in my head. Because we're literally living some of the great times for libertarians and non-libertarians that support Milei have to be patient. Argentina is the most difficult country in the world to make changes, guys, politically speaking. And I guess you have to be in that place in order for the first libertarian to come along. The state is gigantic, and therefore we all have to be very patient. We're not gonna like other things he's gonna do or that he's gonna postpone. I didn't like that he postponed dollarization. He's doing it in a way that I don't fully agree, although I understand why he's doing it, so that's why I don't oppose it. But guess what? He's not listening. He's not responding to me, even if he listens to me. He's responding to the Argentine people. And is that what Argentines figured out that is the best next step? They know better than me.
Maybe he should listen to you. We're going to have to get in touch with his sister and maybe spike her tarot cards.
Yes, let you in his office.
Yeah, so that she'll be because she's apparently his sister is the power behind the scenes. We found out from that Time magazine article. Aaron, where can people follow you online?
You guys can follow me on Twitter, Aaron Sepulveda C. That will be my handle. And I do cover macroeconomics in the United States, now macroeconomics in Argentina, and a little bit of Mexico because my family is from there. And pretty much anything that has to do with libertarianism, I'm very well acquainted.
And what would you say to the thousands of people tuning in live from Argentina this morning?
Thank you for asking me that. Okay. Every single Argentine, I'm not saying in English, and some people
you can say it in English and then say it in Spanish.
Every single Argentine, whether you like Milei or you don't like it, you have to live with the fact that he's a worldwide icon because of his personality. That's it. You don't have to like him. You don't have to support him. The question for Argentines right now is, are you going to capitalize in the international opportunity that you happen to have a president that is very iconic, or you're going to complain? That's what Argentines have to face right now. Choose today what you will do if you're going to capitalize the opportunity or you're going to complain about the opportunity.
And in Spanish?
Oh, wow. I wasn't ready for Spanish, but para los argentinos, tienen un presidente que es un ícono mundial. No te tiene que agradar. No tienes que apoyarlo en nada. Pero la pregunta primordial que se tienen que hacer los argentinos ahorita es, ¿van a sacar provecho y capitalizar en la oportunidad internacional de que tienen un presidente icónico a nivel mundial o se van a quejar? Tienen que darle prioridad a capitalizar en la oportunidad.
There it is. Aaron Sepulveda, a libertarian economist from Texas, and our resident Javier Milei expert. Let's give him a round of applause. Aaron, gracias, amigo.
Muchas gracias. Cuidado todo. Bendiciones.
Are you not tired of winning yet? That's Aaron Sepulveda. Thank you very much for joining us live.